Hey everybody, Steve here from The Buried Life, and today we're going to talk about this right here, how to name your sliced 3D files for success. Okay, now maybe this only applies to me, but if there's somebody that is just in my neck of the woods, because I know I'm way out there, this might help you. So we're going to talk about this, how to name your 3D files. Now, the reason I came to this is because when I started doing 3D printing, specifically resin printing and printing out all kinds of cool little things, like this little predator alien dude here, with the blood and the whole 9 yards and miniatures. And I mean, I'm working on this guy here, from the Lord of the Rings and whatever. So I'm doing a lot of printing stuff. And before I actually got my printer, as I was waiting for that to come in, what I ended up doing is scouring the interwebs for STL files. Yeah, I was all over Cults 3D. I was on Fangs and Printables and STLfinder.com and all of the other ones. Just put STL Finder and you can find pretty much what you want, and it'll direct you to different websites. So Bamboo and Prusa, and there's just all kinds out there. There's free ones, and I'm kind of cheap, so yeah, I do the free ones a lot. I have paid for some models, but they're kind of the higher end ones, but in my heart, I'm cheap. And so what I ended up doing is getting these files and practicing using Lychee or a free slicer program until I purchased Lychee Slicer Pro. And I started putting all of these sliced prints onto a USB stick and on my computer. And then I just kind of hey, I can't wait till I get my machine. And then I got my machine, I got my Saturn III Ultra, and I started doing more stuff. And then I just put them on the USB stick. And then next thing you know, I've got like 10 or 15 different items on this stick. And when I go and I'm okay, a bunch of time has passed and I want to print something out. And then it's hey, I've got some stuff that I want to print. But when I print the stuff, it's not going well. Yeah, it ends up because there was a couple of times where it ends up, like for example, I was printing something and I didn't realize how much resin it was going to take because the last time I sliced it and put it on the USB stick was a long time ago. And so, I don't have enough resin, and I'm just yeah. So I ended up with half a print. So I'm wait a second, there has to be a way. There has to be a way to name these things conventionally so that we can actually know what is on the USB stick or on our computer and whatever. So I wanted to go over that today. So for example, in Lychee Slicer Pro, we have, let me get over here. We have Lychee Slicer Pro, and basically I'm going to give you kind of a rundown of what I would end up doing in this situation. Okay, this situation here, I would get these 5 guys and I would just say warrior dudes and save it and, make sure no islands and whatever, they're all supported and we're good to go. Export it onto the USB drive, and next thing you know, it's I warrior dudes. Now, the good thing with Saturn III Ultra is that when you put the USB drive into the machine, you'll get a little tiny picture, and it'll kind of show you what it is, but it's not a close-up enough picture for 5 of these small dudes to kind of okay, well, is that a bottle top cap, or is that a figure? Is it a dwarf? Is it Warhammer? Is it D&D? Is it, it could be Pokemon for all I know. The picture's just too small to tell, and depending if I named it Warrior Dudes, I'm really at a loss of a lot of information. So, for example, we're going to show you how I name my 3D sliced prints for resin printing, and you could do the same thing with FDM printing as well. And I wanted to go over that so that you can know and have some tangible information that will make you go, and make smart decisions. There's nothing worse than getting on your USB stick and you stick it into the machine and you print something out and then you realize the print is 11 hours long and you only have a half bottle of resin. So it's like and of course you put the print on and you come back 30 minutes later and you're like, hey, I just wasted a bunch of resin. Or like the one time where I put a print in there and I had resin in there, but I didn't have enough, and yeah, it had ruined the print. So this naming convention will help you with some good data to tell you whether you can print or not, the quality, the quantity, how long it's going to take. So let's just jump right to it. Okay, here we are. So instead of naming these guys as warrior dudes, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to take a look here, and we'll make this a little bit bigger to show you how I would name this. So what I came up with this naming convention is have the name or the description of the item. So in other words, you could say warrior dudes, you could say 5 warriors, Warhammer, whatever it is. Put your short little title in the beginning, and then dash, and then put the scale of which you want to print these things at. So if I got these things off of Colts 3D and they're already at 100%, and I'm going to leave them at 100%, I'm going to put 100%. Now, scale is very important because it wouldn't be me if I did and reduce the scale or increase the scale of a print and not remember it, and then I print some more guys and forgot the scale that I did, and so now I got 2 different scales of guys that I'm trying to print, and so I wasted a bunch of resin. So scale is very important. Then it comes out to part 1 of X. So if I have one build plate of whatever this is, it will be 1 of X. So if it's 1 of 1, like these 5 guys here, it would just be 1 of 1. And then there's the UM. The UM is the number of microns, or the quality. And of course you can go to 0.4, 0.3, 0.2 microns, or whatever it is, 50 microns or 20 microns or whatever it is. So that way that can give you an idea of the quality of the print that you're going to get. Now, for me personally, I just leave everything at 50 microns, and so I don't have to worry about anything. But I realize that there might be a time of when I would want to increase the quality of the print for some strange reason, or make it worse. I don't know, maybe it's a low polygon figure and I don't really need a lot of detail. This would be valuable information to learn. Now, the next thing is the resin amount, because I've already talked about how in printing stuff out, it's like, well, hey, yeah, I remember that. I kind of remember that. And I'm old, so you got to give me that. I'm old, and I don't really remember how much resin this would take, but do I think I got enough? I do, but I didn't. And so this is very important. So put the resin amount. Now, for those of you who are wondering where would you find this resin amount, what you can end up doing is going to the bottom corner right down here, and you will see that there's your printer, the resin that you're using, the color, the microns, and of course it also has the time, the exposure, and then it ends up the hours and the milliliters. So we have 38.57 milliliters, and it breaks it down even more. But yeah, that's what we're going to talk about there, is the resin amount. So that way, when you are looking at files on your computer or on the USB stick, and you're like, well, how much resin do I need? Or if you have a number of files on there and you're like, well, I got about half a bottle, or a quarter bottle of resin left, and can I print something? You can reference this part of the name of that item and say, yeah, I can print this. It's only, 38, 39 milliliters versus the 350 milliliters or whatever. So if you don't have enough resin, so that you don't make the same mistake as I did. The other thing is the print time. In other words, put down the number. You could do either the number of minutes total or hours and minutes of how long the print's going to take. So you could do that and then put a dash and then followed by the date. And you could do it by day, month, or year, month, day, or however you want to do it. I don't really care. But I have found myself going through and saying, okay, I remembered I printed this, but I don't remember exactly when. And so part of the name you could put in the date if you're kind of doing a search on your computer or search on your USB stick, and that boom could come up and be a useful tool into identifying what you printed in that day, that month, that year, or whatever it is. So for example, down here we see we have 5 Warriors dash 100% dash 1 of 1 because we only have one build plate dash 50 microns dash 39 milliliters, and I kind of rounded up, dash 3 hours and 51 minutes when actually it would be 3 hours and 50 minutes and 36 seconds. I just kind of rounded up, and then it was printed on the 4th of July 2024, 0407 2024. So that way I can name the file, which is in a .goo. That's what Elegoo uses, their GOO file. And if whether it's on your hard drive, it's on your computer, on the USB stick, with this naming format, you have a lot of useful information that can save you a lot of angst. And, because I recently had went through this again. It took me 3 or 4 times to figure this out, and finally I sat down here tonight and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to rename everything, and I want it to make sense, and I want to have good quality information when I name these things. This also comes into play when you're going to save this file as a Lychee or whatever slicer program that you use. So for example, on this, I can go through and I can save the scene as a Lychee slicer scene, light scene, legacy scene. I just always use the Lychee slicer scene, and then I use the same naming format. So the file, the .goo files that I can put on the USB stick or send over the air and Wi-Fi to the printer to print it out in the .goo file format, I have the same name. But when I save it as the Lychee slicer scene, it is still the same name, description, scale, part number, quality, resin amount, print time, date, all of that stuff. So all of those things come together and match. And then you can put them in a folder and boom, you're good to go. Store them on the iCloud or whatever service you have, or extra hard drive or whatever it is. So that way all of your files are saved as the exact same thing, and it gives you quality information. So like for example, tonight I had some stuff, I had a ton of stuff on the USB stick that I had built and that I had supported, and I was just waiting, and it was like, well, that's really cool. Eventually I'll print this product thing or whatever. So what I ended up doing was going through the USB stick, and because I didn't have this naming format that we see here, that brought about a lot of problems because I don't know if I'm going to have enough resin for the item that I'm printing. And so actually, if we go back to Lychee Slicer Pro, I've got an 11-hour print, and I've got about 34 minutes and 14 seconds left, and I don't know if I'm going to have enough resin. It might be just like this much, not enough. it could be but if I had named my prints and my sliced items and my models in this format that we have right here, it would have saved a lot of angst, and it would save me from kind of skirting that edge, dancing on the razor's edge, doing that balancing act, hopefully that, I didn't just waste a bunch of resin. So, this is the naming convention, and I think this will be a real good naming convention. And again, what I'll do is I'll just put that up there for y'all. And you can tweak it as however you want, but have a naming convention format for your sliced files and for your sliced scenes that you save to your computer or USB or whatever it is. That'll give you information that you can identify and say, hey, well, did I print this out before? And I'm not sure if I printed out, this plate or both plates because it took 2 build plates, or, what was the amount of resin? Do I have enough resin? Oh, I'm going to print something else. You can find that out in the name. So anyway, I just want to go over this and kind of show you this information that I thought was really valuable in regards to when you slice your items and your models and things like that, and how you organize them. Of course, you save them and make a copy of the copy just in case if they're really cool prints or they're really good support systems that you have on there and you built it and it supported it and it printed no problem. Probably be a good time to save and update that. So, with that being said, let me know in the comment section down below whether you think this is a good naming format, or if you have another suggestion, or maybe I'm just way out there and who really cares? Maybe you just do one print at a time and it doesn't really matter. Yeah, you could do that as well. But what I found with this right here is going to save me a lot of angst and frustration. And here's the bonus tip. The bonus tip is that once I'm done actually printing something out, what I'll end up doing, if it's on the USB drive or whether it's on the computer, is I'll update the name, and if I've already printed it, I'll put done at the very beginning. So that way, because on the USB stick that I had, I printed out stuff before, but then I forgot that if I printed them out because I didn't have a good naming format, and so I was like, oh well, yeah, I don't think I printed that before, so I'm gonna print this, and then I found out as it prints out, I'm like, I've got 5 of those guys. I don't need 5 more of these guys, or I did that, been there, done that. I don't want to do it again, so I just wasted resin. So hopefully this makes sense in regards to the method of the madness, in regards to the naming format. And if you've got some other suggestions that have helped you in the past, as a newbie, I would appreciate that. But I thought this would help some other newbies out there that are more noob than I am, if that makes sense, and kind of lessen the learning curve so that you don't go through all the stress I did, or I'm going through right now, because we're at 95%, 96%, and yeah, it's gonna be this close. And I'll do an update. I'll do an update on the video, but not in this video, whether this actually printed out or not, and whether I had enough resin or not, and yeah, I won't make this mistake again because of how I'm naming my stuff now. So please like and subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate that, as we do more hobby stuff with resin printing, painting. Going to get into FDM printing. I also retired overseas in Korea, so I do videos on that. I do some fitness stuff, but pretty much, yeah, I do some of that stuff from time to time. And then we go to coffee shops or different things. But life is getting a little busy, so there's a little bit of everything for somebody somewhere. So like, subscribe, ring the bell. That would help with the algorithm of YouTube, and yeah, hopefully I can get some more, share it, whatever. I need help in more ways than one. Okay, so that's going to be it. We'll see you on the next video. Peace. Yeah, why didn't I do this long ago?